The Ice Warrior ship hung in the night sky, if anyone could tell that it was night through the thick blanket of cloud which darkened the sky. Only the occasional violent flash of lightning briefly illuminated the storm, and all it showed was an endless sky filled with tiny white particles rushing by, being drawn into the glowing maw of the ship. The monstrous frozen beam hummed violently as energy continued to be hurtled toward the ocean, an ocean which was gradually becoming coated in a thick layer of ice as it delved deeper and deeper into the water. And on the ocean floor the first cracks were beginning to show, as the darkened rocks slowly began to fade into a pale, icy blue. All around the Ice Warrior's control bridge, monitors displayed chilling projections, a massive red blot growing around the ship's position on the map and spreading across the planet, with impact times on the various land masses flashing all around, estimated death tolls clocking up higher and higher, and Skaldak watched them all with a cold and toothy grin. From the comfort of his observation deck, he could watch the entire planet be coated in ice, witness the destruction of the human race who had so dishonoured him, and the demise of the Time Lord who had cost him so dearly. Skaldak's thoughts wandered to his daughter. He glanced to his side to the empty space that lay there. She should be by his side for this moment, but she was gone, like so many of his kind, consumed by the flood which was claiming his world, one city at a time. He stared back at the planet below. The frozen earth would make a fine staging ground in the war that was to come. Never in all his days as Grand Marshal did he ever imagine he would lead the attack on his own planet, but Mars had to be retaken, and this would be the perfect way to do it.
"Soon, my daughter,"
he hissed to himself.
"Your father is coming."
"We're still unable to establish long-distance communications, sir," one of the unit soldiers was saying, desperately fumbling at the controls. His fingers were so cold that every touch was beginning to sting. The Brigadier paced the room, calling out instructions in all directions. "How can I organize a counterattack with no communications?" he was saying. "Try everything. Shortwave, longwave, damn it all, use Morse code if you have to. We have to get through to unit command. Carson, I want to know how fast that ice field is expanding. I want to know how long it'll take to reach the nearest landmass, and I want to know now." "Yes, sir, I'm on it," Carson said, turning back to his computer. "I need contact with the UN Security Council. I need a direct line to Downing Street, and I need teams ready to mobilize on the ground. We need to secure those generators," Stewart continued. One of the soldiers suddenly turned away from his desk and called out to him. "Sir, we've got unit control," he said happily. "Morse code, sir, it got through the storm, and unit control is responding. They're awaiting your orders, sir." The Brigadier allowed himself a brief exclamation of relief. "Finally, some good news," he said. "All right, transmit exactly what I say. This is Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart, clearance level Omega, prepared to coordinate global counterattack on the Martian ship. Transmit current coordinates of the target and prepare to mobilize the Air Force." The Doctor suddenly appeared behind him. "Brigadier, those ships won't be able to penetrate the Ice Warrior craft. It's built for war and it's built to survive it," he explained desperately. "Besides, you won't even get close. That storm system will knock your planes right out of the sky. Mobilize a fleet of battleships to the North Atlantic. We attack from the air and from the sea," the Brigadier continued. "The storm can't knock our ships out of the sea, Doctor." "It won't need to," the Doctor replied. "The energy beam is growing in power by the minute. You send those ships out there and they'll freeze as soon as they make contact." "Order the battleships to maintain a safe distance from the anomaly at all times," the Brigadier said. "Brigadier Stewart out. As soon as they respond, let me know." "Yes, sir," the soldier replied. Stewart stalked from the desk and back to the main monitor. "Doctor, see if you can get this screen working again with your little doohickey." The Doctor sighed heavily, pointing his screwdriver and buzzing it. Before long, the screen flickered back to life, the Ice Warrior ship still there, still blasting down at the ocean below, which was more of a glacier now than an ocean. "Carson, projections," Stewart reminded him, and Carson ran back to him with a series of charts and scales. The Doctor hovered behind them, glancing down at the numbers. "According to all our projections, sir, the ice field is expanding at approximately 10,000 square kilometers an hour, but the rate of expansion is increasing, doubling in the last 30 minutes and still growing," Carson explained. "If it continues this way, we're looking at landfall with North America in 6 hours, and Europe less than an hour afterwards." The Brigadier's eyes widened. He was hoping for more time than that. "North America and Europe will be consumed within the next 24 hours, the Doctor predicted slowly. "Why, though? It was the Russians who attacked this Skaldak, and they're safe on the other side of the world," Carson blurted. The doctor glared at him. "He's not going to distinguish between Russian, British, and American, Carson," he explained. "Skaldak is at war with humanity. He's positioned to wipe out the two most concentrated superpowers on the Earth, wiping out Unit and Torchwood in one fell swoop." "Sir, Unit Command has responded. The fleet is being mobilized and the Air Force are en route to the alien ship," another soldier called over. "On screen," Stewart commanded, and the monitor's display widened. The first aircraft was starting to close in on the ship, and the doctor's eyes widened as he turned to Stewart desperately. "Alistair, please listen to me and pull those ships back," he pleaded. "They won't make a dent in that ship. You cannot make war against the Ice Warriors. It's suicide." "You said it yourself, Doctor," Stewart replied, his voice heavy. "We're already at war, and I refuse to allow this planet to fall without a fight." The silence in the room was suddenly broken by a crackle of radio feed as it hissed and whirred. "Unit Air Team Delta calling Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart. Can you read me, sir?" came the voice of one of the pilots. Stewart rushed over to the communication desk and took a hold of the microphone. "This is Stewart. Proceed with your current heading, pilot. Your target is directly over the North Atlantic. Do you have visual?" The Brigadier asked. There was a brief moment of silence before the response came through. "Affirmative, sir. We can just about make it out," the pilot said. "It's huge. Where are we even supposed to hit this thing?" Stewart turned to the doctor. The Time Lord sighed heavily. He knew this endeavour was futile, but as usual they wanted him to tell them how to make it fail as painlessly as possible. "You may as well target the primary power cells at the base of the ship, or attempt to drop your bombs into the upper hemisphere," he explained. "At best, you might be able to disrupt the power flow from upper to lower, thereby slowing the process of the energy beam and buying us more time. But I strongly recommend you disengage." "You heard the man, pilot. Target the intake valves on the upper hemisphere," Stewart interjected. "All battleships prepared to fire on the lower hemisphere. Target that weapon and bring it down." "Brigadier, you're making a terrible mistake," the doctor desperately pleaded, stepping back and throwing his arms up with a huff. The whole room gathered around the monitor and watched as the fleet and planes closed in. It was only their first attack, but already it felt like their last chance. The planes roared through the sky. There were at least 40 of them, soaring through the clouds and being battered by the rising winds, wipers working to quickly dust away the snow before it could form too quickly on their cockpits as they closed in on the massive ship. The vortex was growing more and more violent the closer they got, lightning flashing all around it. The plane at the head of the squadron tilted in the sky as its pilot held up his hand to his communicator and barked his orders to the others. "All right, boys, let's get up above these clouds. Conditions down here are getting too heavy," he ordered. "Up we go, lads." The planes all rose sharply, lifting into the sky. The cloud bank was a thick black void above them, but they knew on the other side they'd soon find perfect clear conditions to be able to complete their mission. One by one the planes rose into the clouds. They shook from side to side as they climbed, and the pilots saw the lightning continue to flash all around them. Suddenly the leader's radio crackled, but he couldn't make out the message. "Say again. I repeat, I cannot hear you." "Pull out energy incoming," was all he could make out. But he didn't need the message. His cockpit was beginning to glow with an ominous blue light. He turned his head off to the side. Rushing straight towards him through the clouds was a wall of energy, dragging the storm behind it as it surged with power. He quickly slammed his plane downwards towards the base of the clouds, all other planes following his lead, but too little too late. The energy field surged through them and the winds howled as the snow hurtled them through the sky in every direction. One by one they were drawn into the surging vortex. Some tried to eject, but the freezing winds sent them hurtling to the frozen ocean below. Planes smashed together in bursts of flame, quickly extinguished by the vortex. "This is the HMS Endeavour. Air Squadron has been completely destroyed," came the report from the battleships below. "Maintain current heading, slow to battle speed and prepare to fire all guns." The ships cascaded through the turbulent waters and formed a massive blockade around the surging energy beam. With a tremendous thud, and then another and another, their huge guns unloaded and fired on the Martian ship. Some shots made it through, crashing harmlessly into the shining metal hull without so much as a scorch to their name. But before too long, the flaming wreckage of the plane started to fall from the sky. Shells pounded them from all sides, not even getting close to their target. One by one they crashed into the ice below, showering the ships in flaming debris. "Captain, we're taking heavy damage," engineers shouted back and forth on the countless ships below, rocked from side to side by the incoming debris. "All ships, full reverse!" the captain yelled into his communicator. "Pull us back!" He stopped. A low humming filled the room. It pulsed quietly but grew louder and faster. Everything was tinted with a shimmering blue glow. The captain walked over to the window and looked up to the Martian ship. More and more of the alignment pulses were being drawn in, faster than before. The storm surge was growing and being drawn into the ship. The captain's face dropped. "Get us back! Pull us away from it!" he bellowed. But it was already too late. With a monstrous howl, the energy beam surged, expanding across the entire fleet and pulsing down into them with a tremendous explosion. Waves were hurled into the air and frozen solid. The Earth itself seemed to shake under the impact, and when the steam cleared, all that remained of the fleet was a scattered mess of icy ships, some half-submerged, others capsized, but all of them, ship, captain and crew, frozen solid. Brigadier Stewart stared at the monitor. The whole room around him was gripped in stunned silence as everyone gawped at what they had just witnessed. On the monitor, the energy beam continued to engulf the sea, larger and stronger than before, expanding across the ocean's surface with a glistening sheet of ice. Stewart couldn't take his eyes off those ships. Locked in the ice, their crew frozen where they had stood, scattered all about the frozen waters. He slowly removed his hat and held it to his chest, closing his eyes and muttering a silent apology to himself. He glanced away at last. The doctor was also staring at the screen, his face gaunt and silent, his eyebrows low, and his lips curled back into a scowl. "Help us, Doctor," Stewart finally said. The doctor glanced down to him, and with both hands he straightened his collar, spun on his heels, and walked from the room. Stewart could only follow, but not before taking one last look at that monitor.